the end of the day, what you need to know about the Stanford MSX program is that it's 1 year, it's full-time, and it's actually on campus. So it is a program, a Master's of Science in Management degree for mid-career professionals and students. And during that 1 year, you will have streamlined business fundamentals, that your core classes that give you the foundations in general management, but then you get to customize the rest of your experience through electives that you take at the GSB or across Stanford University. So you can take electives over at the law school, the School of Medicine, School of Engineering, etc. And what we find that our students are coming for is they're trying to refine their leadership skills to better prepare for senior management. And they're also getting a bit of career clarity. And so that's what we're really great at helping our MSX students accomplish. But really the richness comes from who you're studying alongside. So your peers will have about an average of 13 years of work experience, and they're coming from over 30 different countries and over 40 different industries. Usually our age range of our MSX students is between 8 years of professional work experience to 33 years of professional work experience. So anyone can kind of refine those leadership skills and attain that career clarity for whenever's best with them. So that's what you need to know, kind of again, their main foundational things about the MSX program. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen and invite Liz. Liz, who are you and why are you here talking with us?
Yeah. Well, hello, everyone, and good morning from San Francisco area. I am Liz Yamas. I am the Director of Financial Aid here at the GSB. So I support our MBA, our MSX, and our PhD students. And I'm here to hopefully just provide some clarity and guidelines around what it would look like if you're an admitted student and things to consider during your application process, or as you're planning, because I know lots of people like to plan way far in advance. So hopefully this gives you a good foundation of the financial aspect of financial aid. And just for background, I've been in financial aid for 17 years now, 17, so a long time. So hopefully I have lots of things to share with you. We'll see.
No one I'd rather be with here. Better than Liz, everyone. She's great.
Well, maybe we could start, Danielle, because I want to dive into the financial aid stuff, and I know you only have me for a little while, but it might be helpful to center like why they should make this investment, especially as it relates to COVID, pre and post COVID.
Yeah, of course. So oftentimes what our students are really looking to do is they're looking for some level of personal growth. They've been in the workforce for a set amount of time, but they want to either have greater impact. And so they might need new tools, or they want to extract lessons from their experience thus far. And so I think what we've all learned from COVID-19, which is still, of course, going on, but it's really reinforced the importance of investing in your professional and leadership development so that you can meet the next kind of wave, whether it's through team building with hybrid teams and formats. It's also important to evaluate your marketability if you're looking to make significant changes as a professional. So I would say that the two questions that I would ask any prospective student is it the right time to step up for of work for a year? There's economic uncertainty globally, we know that, and there's some uncertainty with U.S. immigration. It's getting better with our new president, but still, for others, it might be this is the right time to prioritize your professional development. And Stanford can be a really great place to do that. So
yeah, it's really great.
Yeah, thanks, Liz. I want to ask you though. We get this question a lot. Can you help us understand what the costs are associated if an individual does want to come to the Stanford MSX program?
Yeah, absolutely. So the costs are actually available on our public website, so gsb.stanford.edu. And so you can see a breakdown there, and I encourage you to go check it out if you haven't done so already. Hopefully you've already taken a look at it. But the cost of attendance, what's represented there are what we call direct and indirect costs. So it includes things that are direct costs like tuition and fees, but also indirect costs. We assume reasonable living expenses for while you're attending, because you do need financial aid to help support your living while you're here. You're no longer employed. And so financial aid will come in and help with that. And so the single cost right now is around $190,000 for the 12-month program.
And Liz, you mentioned direct and indirect costs. Can you give me some examples? Like, what's that difference?
Yeah.
And what does that encompass?
Yeah, so the direct costs are what will be represented on your Stanford bill. So when the university issues you a bill for the quarter, prior to any financial aid, it's what they will actually charge you. But the cost of attendance also includes indirect costs, things that the university is not going to charge you, but it's important to account for as you're building like your student budget, because now you're a student. So things like food, but if we want to get real specific, we can just break them down real quick. If you're looking at the cost of attendance online, your direct costs are the tuition, the documentation fee, the campus health fee, and the medical insurance. Now, quick note on the medical insurance can be waived. So if you're coming to the GSB with your own medical insurance, you can actually choose to forego or waive that fee. And that's a savings right there for you on the total cost of attendance. But it is your choice. We have some students who choose to keep the supplemental insurance through Stanford and their own personal insurance as well. If you decide to seek your own insurance or bring your own insurance to Stanford, that cost will actually then be an indirect cost, because you still need to afford it while you're in school. So it's still part of your student budget, but the university is not going to charge you for it. So the direct costs are what you're going to see represented, charged by the university. For the indirect costs, if you're looking at the breakdown, that's going to be your living expense. It's going to be your transportation and your books and supplies. So living expense, I just want to dig a little bit deeper in there, because that's all kind of consuming expenses for you. Yeah, it's big. It's big, and there's a reason for it. It includes your rent. So a lot of students decide to live on campus. And if you're living on campus at Stanford, it's your housing charges are actually part of your student bill. So with the living expense, part of that does include those housing charges. So you may see part of that expense represented on your bill, but the remainder is really your own personal living. So food, entertainment, clothing, anything that you would need as a human to get through the next 12 months is essentially represented in that total fee. Transportation is really like, if the idea that you have costs for transportation. So it's going to be either public transportation costs or your own personal transportation costs. And then books and supplies, again, it's just you're coming back to school, you're going to be a full-time student, and you are going to need some of the supplies. So we want to make sure you have enough coverage where you can get those kind of supplies. One other thing that I will note, especially for our married students, is that the cost of attendance for our married individuals a little inflated to include the cost of their spouse as well. So we want to make sure you can borrow or have aid for your family. And that's also true for children. So if you have a child that you're bringing with you, or you have a child while you're here, or multiple children, which sometimes is the case, then we want to make sure we're inflating your cost of attendance to include the cost of your children as well. So it is customized to the student situation, single versus married, and married or single with children.
Excellent. Thanks for that, Liz.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to share. So just so our prospective applicants know, typically, if we look at at a MSX cohort, about a third of our students are coming single and just coming to the on their by themselves. About a third of them are coming with a partner or a spouse, and about a third of our students are coming with a spouse and children. So Liz and their office can help make sure that, you can take out the cost of attendance that is best for your dynamic and situation. Are you going to expand a little bit, Liz?
Yeah, I saw one question pop through while we were chatting. And so someone asked about childcare. And so there are certain reasons why we can inflate somebody's cost of attendance, and childcare costs are one of those. So dependent care costs. Another one, just to point out, would be like medical costs. So if you do have medical costs for some reason, either pre-existing or they occur while you're here, we want to make sure you have enough coverage for those as well. So those are common reasons why we can inflate somebody's cost of attendance.
Excellent. Thanks for that, Liz. So at this juncture, if folks are thinking of joining the Stanford MSX program and Stanford GSB community, what are some of the things that we should be considering at this juncture when it comes to financing the experience?
Yeah, so I do want to make a quick distinction between if you're comparing costs between MBA and MSX. MSX represents 12 months, whereas MBA is a 2-year program, so it's a little bit different. But I think the considerations can be the same across the board. So the kind of things to consider when you're thinking about committing to this financial investment is what aid that the school can offer you. So for example, we are a need-based awarding school. So in financial aid, there are 2 different methodologies that schools can use. One is going to be a merit. So aid is awarded just based on your individual merit, what you put on your application, your accomplishments, et cetera. And the need-based system looks at everyone in a similar way as far as what's represented in their financial situation. So it's really taking the money and giving it to the neediest most. So they can help finance their education because they will have less resources. So we are a need-based awarding school. The other thing to consider is really loans. And financial aid includes fellowship and loans. And I think everyone is so fixated on the free money that they forget that financial aid also can help you borrow as well. And so most of our students finance their education through a combination of both the fellowship and the loans. For our international students who may be on the webinar today, we do offer 3 different international lenders for you here as well, which is really great at the GSB. I think in graduate programs in general, it's rare to find that many choices. And so we're very proud to give you at least 3 different lenders that you can choose from. But even for our US citizens, there's lots of different loan options as well when we talk about federal versus private. Another thing to consider is your own external resources you may be bringing with you. So for any veterans on the call, if you're a vet and you have access to, or a US vet, which should clarify, you have access to post 9/11 GI Bill or the Yellow Ribbon program as well, that we are a Yellow Ribbon school. So that could be a point of support. External scholarships, I like to take a moment here just because, once you're admitted, you start to really think about financial aid. But I'm so excited for everyone who's on the webinar now, because you should really start thinking about financial aid before you even go through the process of applying. And the reason why is because of external scholarships. A lot of students seek that source, but they often wait too late to apply. And this is a 1-year program. So if I can give you any piece of advice now, it's to start applying for external scholarships right away. Even if you're thinking of applying in this next application cycle, because usually scholarship awarding cycles are a year in the past. So if you're applying now, it's for the 2022-2023 academic year, right? So we're already there. So definitely start looking into external scholarships. And we have some resources on our website, so please feel free to start there, but don't limit yourself to any of those resources. Another common external resource we see are employer sponsorships. So this is your employer wants to sponsor your education and provide support to the cost of the education. Absolutely. You can definitely bring that in with you. And then finally, another one to consider is just other contributions from friends or family. I see students who bring in gifts from friends and family who are help paying their tuition, or even loans, which can, if you can borrow from somebody who's willing to give you a really great interest rate, you can do that. So if you want to bring in your own loans, that's totally fine. So I hit a couple, I hit quite a few.
That was really, really great, Liz. And I think if I had to boil down kind of some of the key takeaways that you were just describing, is that because we are a need-based financial institution, we do not actually offer any scholarship or fellowship money for merit, or oftentimes, for academic accomplishments previously. We are need-based, so we will be asking you, if you are accepted to the MSX program, to share some information about your financials. And from there, you have quite a few different options, both from different types of loan options, or scholarship options, or fellowship money to help you cover the full cost of attendance. Was that a fair summary? I know we talked about some of the military veteran benefits and some of the access for international students to a variety of lenders. We will say that of late, it has been really favorable for students, both domestic and international, when it comes to the interest rates for educational loans. So we're expecting to see that continue going forward. At least that's the greatest hope. What I will share too is I'm throwing this into the Zoom chat function, but Liz talked about employer sponsorship. And so if that is of interest, and you're looking for some level of guide, how do I break into this conversation with my employer to see if they'll fund part or all of my degree program, I'm sharing with you a great resource that we developed. It's a PDF. You can bookmark it and read it later. So that's available to you in the Zoom chat function.
Some people don't know their employer offers that kind of support until you go and have that conversation. So really important.
Completely. So I mentioned, I just have a few more questions here, and then I want to turn it over to the audience. But Liz, we were alluding a bit to how eligibility for financial aid is determined. We said it was need-based, but what are some of the tangible things that folks will need to, what's that process, and what are some of the things that they'll need to know about that?
Yeah, so need-based, and I saw this pop too in the question, so I can address that now. So the thing with need-based is it fellowships, specifically the free money that the institution can offer to help cover your program, are specific to your individual situation and what your overall financial profile looks like. And so in a need-based awarding system, that means someone may qualify for no need-based fellowship, but they could or someone could qualify all the way up to full tuition. What I will say, because the question was asked specifically, is that our need-based fellowship does stop at full tuition, which is still quite a bit of money. I think it's $129,000 currently. So it's quite a bit of fellowship support, but it will not exceed that. So if you're looking at the total cost of the program and you need financial aid to help finance the total cost of the program, then that's where the loans come in to pick up whatever the fellowship does not cover. But the range of fellowship can absolutely vary from student to student. It depends on your personal financial aid profile. And the way that we make that determination is it's a point in time analysis of your income and your assets. And if you're married, we look at your income and assets as a household. So even if for some reason your spouse is not contributing towards your education, it's still your household that we're looking at when we talk about income and assets. And what we're trying to determine is your overall financial strength. And that's how we award aid. And so currently what we're looking for in any typical year is the past 2 years of your income. We'll ask for that. So tax returns or tax statements if you're international. But then we also want to just get a little bit deeper, because not everything that happens in your life financially is on your taxes. A good majority of it is, but that's not really true. So things that we want, things that we want to know are are you supporting any family members? Do you have any costs outside or above what's represented in your financial snapshot that's on paper. So we want to collect additional information as well. And part of the process is allowing you the space to write us, we're going to ask you a bunch of questions, but we also just want to know holistically, like, what is your financial picture? What is your household like? Where does your money go? The money that you earn, is it going to support other family members? Is it going to medical costs? Is it going to children? Those are the things that we need to know.
Understood. And I think one of the things that I mentioned is the key part to assembling that application and that process that Liz was referring to a moment ago is once you get admitted to the MSX program. Although there are some resources that you can begin to look at, such as starting the discussion with your employer, starting to evaluate external scholarships, it's really great, as she said, to do that now. You actually will need to get admitted to the MSX program and to the GSB by the time then that you'll be assembling the application requirements that Liz was just speaking to. You talked about it a little bit, but again, I think that some of the financial considerations might impact international applicants. What are some of those things that we want to set up our international students for great success? And I saw a question come through here that it's been a little bit more difficult, maybe since the start of the pandemic, to get international loans for students. Has that been the case at the GSB, and what are some other things that they need to consider?
Yeah, I mean, our international lenders are really great. So the three that we work with, I'm happy to give you the names, are Prodigy, which is an international lender. I think they're based out of the UK. Star One, which is a local credit union here at Stanford, and then Discover, which is a huge bank and lending institution within the US. And so for our international students, those are the three lenders that we offer. And we have not seen an impact as far as lending goes to international groups, which is really great. And we're also getting some more variety from the lender. So before, it used to just be variable rates, and that's what you were given, but we're actually starting to see some fixed rate loans come out of our lenders, which is really cool. So we love to see fixed rate loans come out. For international students, there are no cosigner requirements for the GSB offered loans. You do not need a US cosigner. Now, you could, if you had a US cosigner, you can absolutely attach one to your application. And there are some other US lending institutions, like banks in the US, that will lend to international individuals with a US cosigner. So even if you didn't want to pursue the international loans that we offer, there is a potential that you could get a US based loan with a US cosigner. But we want to make sure, especially for our international group, that they have the same access to aid that the US citizens do. And so those three different lenders do not require a cosigner.
The GSB really cool. Is your cosigner.
Yeah, in a way. Yeah, the GSB stamp is all you need.
So again, you will be able to, whether it's through fellowship dollars or the blend of fellowship and loans, you can take a loan as an international or a domestic student up to the full cost of attendance. So as we were saying, as an individual student with no partner or spouse, that is up to about $190,000 that you can get through fellowship and loans, both domestic and international. I just have one more final question for you, Liz, and then we'll officially turn it over to our audience here. So what is, as the director of financial aid at the GSB, what is it that you recommend prospects think about at this point in their journeys?
Yeah, so I mean, first and foremost, it's a financial commitment. And not only that, you're returning to a lifestyle as a student. It's very different than being a full-time employee. And so you really have to make that commitment with either, contributing your resources or understanding that you're going to have to borrow to get through it, that you're not going to have income coming in for a year, like Danielle talked about in the beginning. Like, this is a serious financial commitment on your part. And one thing that I always touch on is your cost of attendance should be considered a ceiling. when we create a cost of attendance, we are assuming the maximum expenses, and we do that by surveying the students that are here every couple of years to understand what are you really spending and what is the cost for living in Stanford in the Palo Alto area. So that price tag that you see, that 190 or what it is for the with the spouse, that's the maximum amount of aid that you can receive. But that may not be true to your own individual situation. For example, if you don't need that full living allowance, you don't have to take that full living allowance in loans. You can borrow any portion of that. And so start your budgeting now. Like, what is it really going to cost me to go to school for a full year? That will help drive decisions and just better borrowing, because you're going to know exactly what you need to borrow. The other thing to consider is timing. So you don't have to borrow at once. You don't have to borrow up front. If you have some resources, we have a lot of students who try and delay their borrowing in the program as long as possible. And by doing that, they're paying their university bill with their own resources. And then towards the end of the program, they're taking the loan to reimburse themselves, which you can absolutely do. And by doing that, you've just saved 6, 7, 8 months of interest accumulation. And that's absolutely acceptable. Financial aid is awarded by the academic year. So at some point we close out the academic year, but you can wait until that last possible moment to actually borrow and save some money. So there is some strategy there as well. And you have to go into it knowing what your own personal strategy is. If that's not something you can do, which is pay the university bills and delay your borrowing out of your own resources, then maybe that's not an option for you, but it could be an option for somebody else. And then finally, like I mentioned, those external scholarships, and I'll give you guys a website. It's my favorite website right now because it doesn't feel like spam. So when you sign up for external scholarship websites, sometimes it can feel very spammy. They're just emailing you a ton of stuff that doesn't make any sense, that doesn't even relate to you. It's actually Sallie Mae is a lender, and this is for international students or US citizens. Sallie Mae is a private loan lender, but they've spent a lot of time and money and resources building their own scholarship search engine. And it's really clean, easy to navigate, and it doesn't feel like spam. So personally, I really like it. So if you just search Sallie Mae scholarships, and it's SALLIE MAE scholarships, that's a scholarship database that you can sign up for. And I absolutely encourage you to start looking at those now. So those would be my main recommendations, I think, at this point.
That was fantastic, Liz. Thank you. That was very actionable and made a lot of sense. And I'm actually also going to offer one additional resource to all of you.
Yeah.
So once you get admitted to the MSX program, Liz and her team are available to you, and they are the best in the business, and they can help you really look at your financial situation and develop those strategies. So she just gave you some insider baseball of, if you want to maybe take the loan out in the fourth quarter. But she and her team can really help guide, what is going to be the best strategy for you and your financial situation. The biggest thing that you can do now is start to account for a budget and what you would be willing to either sacrifice or be able to realistically spend when it comes to food or clothing or anything like that, so that you can adjust those indirect costs to really match you and your family's needs.
Right. Yeah,
so
that's great.
Thank you, Liz, for answering my questions. We have some really good questions from our audience here. So Akil has asked, what's the average amount of loan per student post-scholarship and self-funding? Can you give us a little bit of insight into that?
Yeah, great. So the average that we're seeing right now is between 90 and 100,000 for the program itself. So again, that's the average. You can go higher than that, you can go lower than that. It just depends on what you choose to borrow once you're here.
Excellent. Thanks for that. Sebastian's curious about living off campus, because it sounds like he and his partner have a pet, and we have no pets allowed on campus in student housing unless it's a service animal. So how does that affect the living allowance and cost of attendance?
Yeah, so when we build our living allowance, we build it looking at both on-campus housing costs and off-campus housing costs. And so when it's created, we make sure to take the higher of the two. So that way we can include everybody because it is an indirect cost. And the good news is in Palo Alto area, it's very similar. So I think that to answer the question it's yes, it's accounted for your off-campus living, but part of it is also your own personal choice, right? So when you get to that point and you're looking for housing, you know what your budget is and what you're going to feel comfortable spending for that 12-month program. But we have accounted for that difference essentially by taking the higher of the two costs.
That's very reassuring. Juan wants to know, how are we valuing currency devaluation for international students?
Yeah, so when you apply, you can apply in your currency, whatever it may be, and we will look at your individual financial situation based on that country's currency. So it's included in our process as far as what your value of your assets or your income may be, and once it's converted to US dollars. It is a point in time analysis though. So at some point we do lock you in. So it's not like we continually check your currency valuation during the program, but we want to make sure that you have the opportunity to report information to us, because if something does dramatically change, if there is some major issues in your country, that you have a way to reach out to us and let us know. And so there will always be that opportunity to reach out to us to give us some more context around your financial situation. We don't close the book on your financial aid, especially in a need-based process, because your need can change over the course of the 12-month program. So we want to make sure you have the ability to report new information to us at once.
Excellent. Oh, that's such a relief, actually, so especially as things can fluctuate. Both Amit and Yvette, I'm going to take this question, Liz, if that's okay, asked if you can work part-time during the MSX program. And the answer is no, you cannot. There is not work study and there is not the ability to work part-time, because it is an immersive and an accelerated master's degree program. You're going to be juggling way too much during the program between career coaching and career search, the academics, and then of course some social obligations. So our MSX students cannot work part-time during the program. Someone's asked a question about kind of what's that difference between our MBA program seemingly having more scholarships versus the MSX program. Can you just speak to that a bit?
Yeah, so from the GSB level, the need-based analysis is actually applied evenly to both programs. So the MBAs are going through the same process, the MSX are. Now, when it comes to external scholarships, there can absolutely be very specific MBA external scholarships, and it can be a little bit harder to find graduate program scholarships. So that's why I want you to start looking now, because it is, it can be very competitive just for graduate level scholarships. But as far as what the GSB offers, it's actually the same process. So everyone's a need-based.
Yes, that is something that I'm really proud of working at the GSB, is that, no matter if you're an MBA student or an MSX student, you have access to the same funding and fellowship dollars. They're just two different programs. So really, we're trying to allow each of you to make the choice of what's best for you and kind of your career and professional development goals. I think we're close to the end of our questions. If anyone else has additional questions, now's an opportunity to post that. Oh, please.
I can throw one more out there. Yeah, because I don't think we got a chance to touch on it, but I just wanted to make sure everyone was aware that the GSB has its own loan forgiveness program for any students who are pursuing nonprofit or public service. And this is even if you're international and you're going into an NGO, once you're an alum. And the loan forgiveness program, because it's completely funded by us, will help pay part of your monthly obligation of your loan repayment. So you could even have additional fellowship funding from the GSB as an alum. So really cool. Just not everyone pursues those career paths, but I just wanted to throw it out there in case anyone was thinking of pivoting or going back into the nonprofit sector. We do have a way to support you with those lower level salaries possibly.
Oh yeah, I mean, I can't believe that I forgot to even ask you a question about the loan forgiveness program. It's like one of the coolest things about our financial aid.
I know, totally forgot.
Well, I'm so glad that you remembered to ask that. This is a great, I think, final question from Krunal here. Is when do you find out about your scholarship and financial aid options when it comes to the process? I'll let you start us off, and then I'm happy to close it out.
So the way that the GSB determines eligibility is once you are admitted, so you do have to apply, get admitted first. We will review your information, your financial aid application once you are admitted, and then we will issue you an award letter prior to you having to accept your admissions into the program. So you'll have a full understanding of what the financial obligation is prior to accepting your admissions. Do you want to add on to that, Danielle?
Yeah, no, so we need you to have the best information possible before you tell us yes, no, or maybe. And of course, you have to make an official decision of yes or no if you would like to enroll. So Liz and her team, they're great about making sure that you have the option to evaluate what is the GSB willing to offer you from financial aid before you give us a firm commitment. So I really am grateful that you guys are able to do that for our admitted students. I think it's obviously an important part of this the process. Thank you, Liz, for joining me this morning. It's always divine seeing you. And I think I want to say thank you for everyone that joined us. You guys were all fantastic. If you have follow-up questions, you're welcome to email stanfordmsx@stanford.edu. I also am going to throw here in the Zoom chat. This is a really great document that Liz and I co-wrote actually this past year to help you finance your Stanford MSX experience. I highly recommend it. Gives some really good tips, a lot of the things that we talked about, but also some new things. So feel free to click that link and save that. But otherwise, Liz, have a wonderful week. Same to everyone that's joining us. Thank you very much for the information. Take care, stay safe, stay healthy, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.